He is sitting in a maximum security interrogation cell with shattered fingers and frostbitten toes. But somehow this 60-year-old Christian pastor managed to completely humiliate the most paranoid surveillance state on the planet for 6 agonizing years. This is not a Hollywood script about a highly trained black ops agent rappelling from a stealth helicopter. This is the terrifying true reality of how a completely ordinary grandfather, wearing a cheap suit and carrying a Bible, became the Central Intelligence Agency's most valuable asset inside a nation where a wrong glance guarantees a firing squad. For decades, the United States intelligence apparatus spent trillions of dollars launching bleeding-edge satellites into the exosphere. Analysts in windowless rooms in Langley, Virginia, could zoom in close enough to read the license plates on military convoys driving through the freezing smog of Pyongyang. They mapped every hidden underground bunker and tracked every ballistic missile silo across the isolated peninsula. But they had a fatal, crippling blind spot. They were completely deaf to the human element. North Korea is a fortress of absolute paranoia, sealed shut by rusted barbed wire and heavily armed border patrols with shoot-to-kill orders. It is a society where the internet does not exist, where international phone calls are physical impossibilities, and where your own neighbor is highly likely to report you to the secret police for a slightly unenthusiastic round of applause at a military parade. South Korean intelligence had sent hundreds of trained operatives across the demilitarized zone over the decades, and almost none of them ever came back. American spies fared even worse. Placing a Caucasian operative in a country where foreigners are followed by minders every single second of the day was an operational impossibility. The CIA was desperate for a human listening post inside the Hermit Kingdom, especially as the regime's nuclear ambitions began to violently accelerate in the late 2000s. To get an American spy inside North Korea, they would literally have to invent a ghost, or they would have to find someone who is already hiding in plain sight. Enter Kim Dong-chul. Born in Seoul, South Korea in 1953, Kim had immigrated to the United States, living a quiet, mundane life in the sprawling suburbs of Fairfax, Virginia. He was the quintessential immigrant success story, a naturalized American citizen who had earned a doctorate in theology and spent his weekends giving sermons as a humble Baptist pastor. He did not know how to fire a suppressed weapon. He did not know how to evade a tail. He simply had an overwhelming calling to help the desperately impoverished ethnic Koreans living along the freezing borders of northeast China. In 2004, utilizing distant family connections linked to the North Korean military elite, Kim received something almost unprecedented. He was handed a golden ticket by the regime's United Front Department, inviting him to invest in the strictly controlled Rason Special Economic Zone. Kim liquidated his entire life savings, pouring a staggering $2.6 million into constructing the massive Tumang Hotel right inside North Korean territory. The gamble paid off beautifully. He transformed into a model foreign entrepreneur, creating local jobs and donating critical medical supplies. The regime absolutely loved him. They loved him so much that the Supreme Leader's administration personally awarded him state commendations in 2007 and again in 2009. He dined with high-ranking party officials, drank soju with military generals, and walked past heavily armed checkpoints with nothing but a polite wave. The CIA had spent billions trying to crack the front door of North Korea, and this unassuming pastor had just casually walked right through it and bought a hotel. By 2009, Kim had been operating his hotel for 5 years, completely unaware that invisible eyes from Washington and Seoul were watching his every move. Intelligence handlers realized that they had stumbled upon the ultimate white whale, a legitimate American citizen deeply embedded within the North Korean elite, holding unrestricted access to high-level conversations. In a covert meeting outside the country, agents from the CIA and South Korea's National Intelligence Service finally approached him. The atmosphere in that secure room was suffocatingly tense. They did not sugarcoat the reality of their request. They asked him to become a human antenna, transmitting the darkest secrets of a nuclear rogue state back to the free world. The handlers looked the 60-year-old pastor directly in the eyes and delivered a chilling ultimatum. They told him that if he agreed to this suicide mission, he would be operating without a safety net. There would be no extraction teams hovering in the night sky. There would be no diplomatic prisoner swaps if he was burned. If the secret police found out he was a spy, he would face unimaginable physical torture, followed by a slow, agonizing death in a forced labor camp where hundreds of thousands of political prisoners were already buried in unmarked graves. He was terrified. The logical choice was to walk away and return to his comfortable life in Virginia. But the immense suffering he had witnessed inside the totalitarian state weighed heavily on his conscience. And when an operative reminded him that as an American citizen, he had a profound duty to protect his homeland, Kim made the most dangerous decision of his entire life. He said yes. There was absolutely no time to send him to a covert training facility. They had to teach him the deadly art of espionage on the fly during brief, chaotic layovers in Chinese hotel rooms. They stripped away his identity as a simple businessman and molded him into a clandestine operative. They strapped a heavy, customized wristwatch to his arm, containing a microscopic hidden camera capable of photographing classified documents in low-light conditions. They drilled him on the intricate protocols of dead drops, teaching him how to hide encrypted USB drives in hollowed-out rocks and public restrooms without breaking his natural stride. They forced him to memorize complex communication ciphers that he would have to use to transmit encrypted messages back to his handlers. Most importantly, they taught him the cold, hard, psychological reality of living a permanent lie. Every time he used one of these gadgets, he had to immediately destroy the physical evidence because a single microscopic memory card found in his pocket at a border checkpoint would mean an instant death sentence. Armed with these crude but effective tools, Kim Dong-chul packed his leather suitcase and boarded a train heading back into the frozen darkness of North Korea. As the steel wheels screeched across the border tracks, he stared out the frosted window at the desolate landscape, knowing that his life was no longer his own. From this exact moment forward, every friendly smile he gave, every business deal he negotiated, and every breath he took in Pyongyang would be an act of high treason. The only American spy in the most dangerous country on Earth was officially active. How do you buy treason in a country where the state demands absolute religious devotion from the moment you are born? The answer was shockingly simple, and it exposed a massive, fatal flaw in the regime. You buy it with cold, hard American cash. Decades of devastating economic mismanagement had left even the most loyal military officers and government clerks desperate to feed their starving families. Foreign currency was the only real guarantee of survival. Kim realized that he could not operate as a lone wolf indefinitely. To satisfy the insatiable intelligence demands coming from Washington, he needed access to the deepest, darkest corners of the North Korean military-industrial complex. He needed insiders. He carefully began to identify targets within the local bureaucracy who were either disgruntled, underpaid, or simply blinded by greed. He approached them slowly, methodically, using his legitimate hotel business as the perfect cover for illicit transactions. It started with a few $100s here and there, disguised as innocent commercial research. He would pay a corrupt border guard for a shipping manifest, claiming he needed to plan logistics for his hotel guests. He hired a local driver and slipped him extra cash whenever the man casually mentioned seeing heavy troop movements on the main highways. To these desperate North Koreans, Kim was just a wealthy foreign investor sharing his good fortune. They convinced themselves that these tiny betrayals were harmless. But to Kim and his CIA handlers, every single one of these people was now an unwitting asset in a rapidly expanding espionage network. By the end of his first grueling year, Kim reeled in his most dangerous catch yet. He managed to compromise an actual high-ranking North Korean military officer who was willing to sell classified state secrets. In the intelligence community, this was the equivalent of striking oil. We will call him Agent Zero. During tense, nerve-wracking dinners at the Tumang Hotel, Kim would pour endless shots of cheap soju, laughing loudly at the officer's jokes, while the miniature camera hidden inside his wristwatch silently clicked away. He captured high-resolution images of military uniform badges and classified documents carelessly left protruding from the officer's leather briefcase. He paid Agent Zero with thick, unmarked envelopes stuffed with pristine $100 bills. When those encrypted files finally made it across the border and onto the desks of CIA analysts, the entire intelligence community was absolutely floored. Human intelligence directly from inside the North Korean military was completely unprecedented in modern history. The operation was a massive success, but it fundamentally altered the psychological landscape of Kim's existence. He was no longer just an antenna passively listening to the wind. He was officially a spy master running a highly illegal syndicate. The network rapidly ballooned. He recruited a trading company official who had unrestricted travel privileges between Pyongyang and Rason, using him as an unwitting courier to transport sensitive materials. He compromised a high-level customs officer who began feeding him highly classified manifests of restricted equipment arriving from China. Half a dozen North Koreans were now secretly working for him, creating an invisible spiderweb of treason across the most heavily monitored country on Earth. But with every new asset he added to the payroll, the invisible noose around his own neck pulled tighter. Every single person in that web knew his face, his name, and his meeting locations. He was completely isolated. He could not confide in his business partners, his hotel staff, or even his own wife, who still believed he was just a devout Christian missionary running a legitimate business. Every morning he woke up in his modest hotel room, staring at the ceiling with his heart pounding against his ribs, wondering if today was the day the secret police would kick his door off its hinges. Every night he lay in the dark, calculating the terrifying odds of his own survival. He was forced to split his mind into two separate realities, constantly lying to everyone he loved, just to stay alive. As the years ground on, the Central Intelligence Agency's appetite for secrets became completely voracious. Washington wanted to know absolutely everything. They demanded intelligence on internal military promotions, hidden weapons testing facilities, and the identities of key scientists working in the highly classified nuclear sector. In 2011, Kim's handlers tasked him with an incredibly dangerous mission that seemed physically impossible. They did not just want photographs or whispered rumors anymore. They wanted physical, tangible proof of North Korea's rapidly advancing nuclear weapons program. Through his vast underground network, Kim heard whispers of a desperate scientist working deep within the state's nuclear research division. A terrifying plan was put into motion. In exchange for a massive sum of American currency, the scientist agreed to provide a highly restricted object. It was a solid block of 99.999% pure zinc, deeply stamped with faded Soviet Union markings. High-purity zinc is a critical component used in the advanced production of nuclear warheads and long-range ballistic missile systems. This specific ingot had been sourced from old, stockpiled Soviet military reserves, making it the holy grail of physical intelligence. Kim had managed to acquire a literal piece of the North Korean nuclear puzzle.
Now he had to do the impossible and smuggle a highly radioactive component out of a locked-down military state. He carefully concealed the heavy zinc ingot deep inside his personal luggage, burying it beneath layers of ordinary clothing and business documents. His pulse hammered in his ears as he dragged that suitcase through layers of heavily armed border checkpoints, sweating profusely under the dead-eyed stares of North Korean military police. One random luggage search, one suspicious guard with a metal detector, and he would be dragged into an underground execution chamber. But the guards, recognizing the famous American businessman from the hotel, simply waved him through. He crossed the border into China and successfully delivered the physical nuclear evidence directly into the hands of American intelligence operatives.
Langley was absolutely ecstatic. This completely untrained Korean-American grandfather had just pulled off a geopolitical heist that the CIA had only ever dreamed of executing. But how long can you successfully count cards at the world's deadliest casino before the heavily armed security guards finally catch on to your winning streak? North Korean counter-espionage surveillance is infinitely patient, and by the autumn of 2015, the terrifying net was silently closing in around him. After 6 unprecedented years of stealing military secrets from right under the noses of the supreme leader's inner circle, the unbelievable luck of Kim Dong-chul was rapidly evaporating. In October of that year, the regime was preparing for the massive 70th anniversary celebration of the ruling Workers' Party. Security across the entire nation was tightened to a suffocating level. Kim had returned to Rason from a trip to China, hoping that showing his face would project an aura of innocent business as usual. He stepped out of a drab government building into the cold, biting autumn air, walking casually toward his waiting vehicle. But suddenly his stomach violently lurched. One of his own secret North Korean intelligence assets was walking rapidly directly toward him in broad daylight. This was a catastrophic violation of every single clandestine protocol they had ever established. Spies do not meet in the open under the watchful eyes of state security cameras and roaming military patrols. The terrified agent walked straight up to Kim with a bizarre, twisted smile on his face and forcefully pressed a heavy bundle of classified documents and a plastic USB drive directly into his sweating palm. Kim felt his heart slam against his ribs. He knew instantly that he had been completely burned. The asset had likely been compromised, tortured, and forced to act as live bait to trigger a trap. Before Kim could even react, another familiar figure smoothly slid into the passenger seat of his car. It was the smiling face of the local state security department's counter-espionage director. Within seconds, heavily armed security officers swarmed the vehicle, dragging Kim out onto the pavement, confiscating the USB drive, his mobile phone, and his leather bag. They tightly blindfolded him, shoved him violently into the back of an unmarked black van, and sped away into the terrifying abyss of the North Korean secret police network. The American spy, known as Antenna, was finally caught. He completely vanished into the darkest black hole on the planet for months, while the outside world had absolutely no idea if he was even breathing. The regime dragged him into subterranean interrogation chambers designed specifically to completely break the human spirit. The interrogators wanted the names of every single contact in his vast espionage network. They wanted the exact methods the Central Intelligence Agency used to communicate with him. When Kim desperately tried to protect his highest-ranking military assets, the physical torture began. The brutal methods used to extract his confessions were beyond human comprehension. Heavily booted soldiers shattered his fingers and systematically subjected him to severe sleep deprivation, forcing him to stand awake for days in freezing temperatures until his mind hallucinated. They starved him until his ribcage protruded through his pale skin while interrogating him under blinding white lights. Consumed by an overwhelming despair and knowing the inevitable fate that awaited his captured informants, Kim tragically attempted to end his own life. He managed to inhale toxic carbon monoxide gas from a burning charcoal briquette in a desperate bid to take his devastating secrets to the grave. He completely lost consciousness, expecting to finally find peace in the dark. But brutal guards discovered his limp body and violently doused him in buckets of freezing water, shocking his failing heart back to a miserable rhythm. As he lay violently trembling on the blood-stained concrete floor, a guard leaned down and whispered a terrifying promise. He told Kim that he was destined to live a very long life, and that he would not be allowed to die until the Supreme State finally gave him permission.
Ultimately, the human body can only endure so much agony before the mind completely splinters. In March of 2016, the regime dragged the broken, emaciated pastor in front of state television cameras in Pyongyang, forcing him to read a highly scripted public apology, confessing to stealing military secrets. To save himself from immediate execution and desperately trying to shield his most critical assets, Kim gave up the names of several lower-level North Korean accomplices who were swiftly and brutally executed by the state. In April, he was officially sentenced to 10 agonizing years of hard labor. The wealthy hotel investor was stripped of his name and officially became prisoner number 429.
The agonizing days bled into a blur of endless physical toil, digging frozen dirt and carrying heavy loads, while exposure to toxic industrial chemicals nearly destroyed his remaining lungs. His permanent physical damage from the brutal torture sessions left him completely unable to even stand up straight. But miraculously, while he suffered in that freezing labor camp, completely unaware of the shifting geopolitical tectonic plates outside the barbed wire walls, a massive diplomatic thaw was slowly beginning. By the spring of 2018, intense negotiations between a new American presidential administration and the North Korean regime finally yielded an impossible miracle. On May 9, 2018, after 31 agonizing months of horrific captivity, prisoner 429 was physically handed over to United States envoys on a blazing hot tarmac in Pyongyang. Within hours, the scarred and crippled 60-year-old grandfather was standing on American soil, shaking hands with the President of the United States. He had lost his health, his life savings, and 6 years of his freedom. He will walk with a permanent limp for the rest of his borrowed time. But his unbelievable legacy can never be erased from the shadowed halls of Langley. For 6 impossible years, an ordinary man armed with nothing but a cheap hidden camera and a quiet faith achieved something that trillion-dollar military satellites and elite black ops teams completely failed to do. He infiltrated the most impenetrable fortress on Earth, bought the loyalty of its elite officers, and stole its deepest nuclear secrets right out from under the nose of a dictator. He proved to the world that no massive surveillance state, no matter how terrifyingly paranoid or perfectly constructed, is ever truly invincible against human determination. If you found the incredible truth behind this classified story fascinating, hit that subscribe button and leave a like to help Clarity Uncovered bring more hidden histories into the light. What do you think is the ultimate price of absolute loyalty in a world driven by greed? Let us know down in the comments, and remember that sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the world is just an ordinary man with nothing left to lose.